Hello. I want to give you a brief overview of how I will be grading the review of the literature. I think that by watching this video, this may give you a better idea of how to proceed. The first thing that I want you to remember is that as you look at the assignment, there is a video here that talks about how to use the template, but this is a template assignment. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click on the template. You'll see down here where we have that, and you'll click the download so that you can open it and you can actually type directly into the template. When you do that, you will find that you can save this template on your hard drive and you can put information into it. Now, as you look at the template, you'll also notice that I have given you in orange a hint or a direction to an article that we have actually used somewhere within the module, whether I've asked you to read it and to highlight it as a practice, or I've asked you to read it and take a quiz on it as a practice, or perhaps I've just given you samples and of summaries and used that article as the summary. You certainly don't have to use these unless it specifies in the assignment that you're going to do Dauber. So for example, on this one, it says the recall movement was organized and led by Michelle Dauber. And then you do have to do Dauber's article as the summary. Do not put Maria Ruiz there. That's another one. So notice that you would do the petition by Maria Ruiz. And both of these you have had quizzes on. So you should have access to go back to the quiz, click on the quiz, look at the right or wrong answers, and you should see what the suggested reasons are. That will give you something to kind of use as a guideline as you're writing your summaries. Now, there are some areas where you're on your own. You're going to have to go through and you're going to have to find your own article. For example, the defendant statement. You'll notice that up here, where we talk about Chanel Miller, the summary of Chanel Miller. We've worked on that in class. We've practiced it. You can revise it and insert it. But Brock Turner, we have not talked about. And you're on your own for that. So there are a few articles that you're going to have to find on your own, and you're going to have to summarize them. Now, you have found Brock Turner article. You did that for the practice on putting together the references page. So you have accessed that article in the doc cloud, but we haven't worked with actually summarizing it in class. So as you go through here, you'll see that most of this should be familiar. It's not the very first time that you've actually looked at it. And then, of course, you have to have your references page. Now, keeping that in mind, how do I actually go about grading things? Now, you'll notice with every assignment that you've done, there is a rubric that is attached. And it's my experience that a lot of you have not paid close attention to the rubric, because the rubric is there to help you know exactly how you're going to be evaluated and to tell you what you need to do. So you'll notice in the instructions in the template that you have to follow the template exactly as it is. You can't just rearrange things, because every one of these objectives is keyed to that particular template. If you do not use the template, then trying to grade the paper according to the rubric is a nightmare. It might not be possible at all. But notice what each paragraph, basically each objective is one paragraph. And the first paragraph is going to introduce the issue that you are researching in this paragraph. You have to summarize the facts of the Brock Turner case, and you should use Wikipedia for your information. The second one says explain Turner's sentence. In this paragraph, you have to summarize all the elements of his sentence, including jail time, probation, sex offender registration, etc. You must also explain the significance and seriousness of the crime. Now, if you look at your template, you'll notice for option 2 that they give you 2 suggestions for articles. One is Kaplan and one is Khan, Sajid Khan, both of which we have dealt with in this class. So when you turn in your paper, I will see a version of this particular rubric. So let me go to the assignment here. and I'm going to go to Speed Grader, and I'm going to show you. Now, if the student here had turned in their assignment, their paper would pop up right here. One of the reasons that you have to use PDF or Word docs is so that I can get into that. I can run it through. I can highlight, I can put comments directly in, I can put bullet comments, I can work with it. If you don't use a Word doc or PDF, I don't have that functionality. And all you can do is get some very vague comments over in the view rubric part. So it's really important that you use that submission, as most of you have been doing. Okay, another thing I want to remind you of is if you are using Google Docs, make sure you save it as a PDF, because if you save it as a Word doc from Google Docs, it's going to mess up your formatting, and formatting is a part of your grade. So I'm looking at the paper. Let's pretend there's a paper here. I'm going to open up View Rubric. And what you can't see is you can see the objective and you can see the points that I have assigned to the paper, but or to that objective. What you cannot see are the saved comments. And I put saved comments in here so that I'm very consistent about how I grade these very long documents. So in Objective 2, I have told you that I want you to talk about the sentencing statement and about the seriousness of the sentence itself. And in the template, I have said that you might want to go to Kaplan and that you might want to go to Kahn. But what I'm really looking for there is the exact sentence. What is the precise sentence that Turner received? Everybody pretty much agrees that if you look past the media who said it was 6 months and just stopped there, that it was pretty robust. But you only really Sajid Khan gets into exactly what the sentence is. So when I'm grading that summary, I'm going to look for this. I'm going to look for the section requires the full sentence, which was 6 months, 3 years probation, lifetime registry as a sex offender, mandated sex offender rehab training, mandated drug alcohol training, and also, and I'm going to put it in here because I forgot, he had to pay restitution. Okay, so your summary, whomever you summarize, you can summarize any one you want. Those are the two suggested ones. Or you could combine them. You could have two summaries if you wanted. But within that summary, to get the 10 points, to even get the 8 points, I need this. In order to get the 8 points, I need at least 6 months, 3 years probation, lifetime registry as a sex offender, mandated sex offender or mandated training, okay? And it needs to come from an author who actually talks about that. To get the full 10 points, I need all of that. So I'm going to look at that, and I have to agree. I have to say that it's kind of loose. Remember that 8 points means that you have met competency. 8 points means that's what I could reasonably expect anybody to do at this point in the semester. So it's pretty widely known that at least he had the 6 months, the lifetime sex offender, and the probation. That's pretty widely known, right? So as long as you had that, you would get the 8 points. But to get the 10 points, you would need to have all of that. Let's go down to another one. Now, we have different articles. We have some articles that you have had the benefit of sharing my reasons, whether it was in a quiz or I showed you a sample summary or something. You have had the benefit of seeing the reasons that I think are important. And those reasons are cut and pasted into the comments. So I would expect those reasons to be there if you were to get the point. So for this one, the next one is you are going to go to the change.org article. And I would expect that you would include all of these reasons because you have seen them in a couple of different places, but you actually took a quiz on Maria Ruiz. And even if you didn't do well, you can go back to the quiz, click on the answers, and see the suggested answers. So what I would expect to see is that Persky ignored all input other than the probation office. He pardoned an unrepentant rapist, that he was biased in favor of a white athlete, and that he did not send the message that sexual assault is unacceptable. In order to get the 4 out of 5 points, I need to see all of those, right? And then to get the 5 points out of 5 points, I need to see it written very clearly in your own words and so forth, that I'm not confused, that it didn't look like you just reworded the reasons that were in the quiz, but you actually have transitions and so forth. But at the very minor, the very least, you need to have the basic reasons. And I'm harsh on that because you were given the reasons. So you can write your summary, then go back to the original and make sure that the reasons are reflected. You may have a few extra reasons, that's okay, but these are your downbeat reasons. And I do the same for the Miller and Turner statements. Now here we have two. We have Miller statements and then we have Turner statements. I spend most of my time focusing on Turner statements. So if you do not get Miller statements right, you're immediately going to get a 3 because we've practiced Miller. You have gotten revisions for Miller. You should get Miller's reasons down. That shouldn't be a problem, but you're on your own for Turner. So here I can be a little bit more lenient because I realize that you haven't had a model here. So I focus most of my time on Turner. If you get Miller right and then you get Turner close to right, you make some mistakes in Turner, you could get a 4, or if you get Turner right, then you get the 5, obviously. And so as we go on, you're seeing that that's going to happen. Notice that you don't have to use the articles that I gave you unless I specify that it has to be the victim statement, defendant statement. There's no other way to do it other than Chanel Miller and Brock Turner. But when we get down and we look at some of the authors or some of the lawyers who are reflected, you can pick your own author if you want to. If you want to spend the time doing research, and I will go and read it, but it will be the same thing. I will read the article, I will identify the reasons, and I will want to make sure that those two things match. So the purpose of the template is to help you be as efficient as possible in identifying your sources. And remember that you can only use an article once. So if you have used Roderick O'Connor in the beginning part, where we talk about someone who argues against the recall, you cannot use him again later when you have a lawyer who supports Brock Turner's sentence. You can only use an author once. Once again, that's where the template can be very helpful for you because I've tried to key you on what articles we used in our modules that actually meet those needs. This is a process that cannot be done in an hour or two unless you have already written your summaries. If you have written summaries, if you've collected all of the articles and you have written all of your summaries using the template, you can put this together in 2 to 3 hours. But if you're going through step by step, it's going to be multiple hours. And that's why I have extended the deadline. Ideally, it would be done by Sunday, but I have extended the deadline through spring break week to the 15th so that you can work on it a little bit each day. What I suggest that you do is that you reach out to me or you reach out to Donna. I don't know what Donna's schedule is over the weekend, but I will be monitoring emails and I'll be free to do Google Meets and so forth over the weekend. But as of Sunday, we're both off the clock. I will be watching my emails. I'll check emails once a day in case you have an emergency question, but I can't do any coaching, and I'm not going to do any in-depth question answering, and it will be the same for Donna. So make sure you understand what you're doing before we go into spring break, if you're going to reach into that period of time to complete the ROL. The good news is we're completed our research and our reading when we come back, so we can begin writing seriously, having already collected a fountain or a complete grouping of sources that you can go to begin to pull reasons and evidence as you begin writing paragraphs that will eventually coalesce into your final essay.